Americans are still reeling from the terror attack in Orlando. However, its leaders don't appear as concerned, according to columnist David French. He says ISIS won in Orlando and is winning in the aftermath. David joins us now to explain why. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time today. Why is this victory for ISIS significant?
Well, it's a twofold victory. So first, obviously, anytime a terror organization that is trying to strike America hits us so hard that it's the worst terror attack since 9/11, well, that's a big victory for ISIS. I mean, the killer pledged allegiance to ISIS repeatedly. It vindicates its strategy of trying to recruit these lone wolves to engage in terror attacks on its behalf. So on that standpoint, it was a win for ISIS. It's horrible to say, but true. But then something else happened that I don't think ISIS could have anticipated, in that rather than uniting to confront a common enemy, our political class promptly began tearing itself to pieces, culminating in one whole side of the political spectrum, or key leaders on one side of the political spectrum, attacking Christians of all people for this terrible terror attack.
Why is the lack of action on our government's part following Orlando so dangerous?
Well, look, I mean, we have for 2 years now been conducting a very low intensity, slow motion war against ISIS. And during the course of those 2 years, we have seen a sharp uptick in terror attacks against the United States. So to say that we just need to keep doing what we're doing is to say that we need to keep risking our citizens with a similar pace of attacks. Look, ISIS has demonstrated it can strike in San Bernardino, in Orlando, in Paris, in Brussels. It has inspired more attacks in Texas, in Philadelphia. I mean, the list goes on. And so to say that, we're doing all that we can and we're doing what we can is just false. We're not doing enough.
Does the problem go beyond the Obama administration? And do you think whoever is elected in November will do a better job?
Oh, of course, the problem goes beyond the Obama administration. I mean, the Obama administration is responsible for the current military strategy, but his chief GOP, the man who's trying to be the GOP replacement for the Obama administration, has a foreign policy that is best described as an entire casserole of crazy. I mean, Donald Trump has no idea what to do with ISIS. He probably doesn't even know what ISIS stands for. He at one point thought that Exxon could help defeat ISIS. At another point, he thought ordering American troops to commit war crimes would defeat ISIS. And then just earlier this week, he was busy spending time subtly accusing the president of the United States of treason. I mean, this is not a serious human being, and we need a serious human being to confront a serious terror organization.
Well, what about Hillary Clinton? What about her stance as far as this situation in Orlando?
Well, it's bad, but it's not as bad as Obama's, and it's not as bad as Donald Trump's. But it's bad. I mean, America faces a dreadful election coming up in November unless something drastic happens between now and then, like a delegate revolt at the convention. She is slightly more hawkish and slightly more aggressive than Barack Obama is. She's always been throughout her career. She's less aggressive than I think what needs to happen to confront ISIS. But, again, I mean, America is facing a deadly foe, and it is also facing a complete failure of leadership from both parties.
You wrote one of the scariest things is that Americans did not unite after this attack as we have in the past. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that for us?
Not only did we not unite, but, anyone who was following the Twitter feeds of various pundits and celebrities and politicians on Sunday, the terrible day of the attack, on Monday, you began to see a phenomenon where people were actually angrier at their political opponents than they were at ISIS. I mean, that's a stunning development in this country. After 9/11, our nation rallied together. Even as recently as the Boston bombing, our nation largely rallied together. Remember Boston Strong? Here we are, just a couple of years since then, and we can't even come together after a man slaughters 49 Americans, wounds more than 50 more, pledges allegiance to the worst terror organization in the world, and our political class thinks it is more productive to engage in a vicious political warfare with each other. I mean, not everyone, but segments of our political class.
All right, David French, anything else that you want to say? Anything else you want to get across related to what happened in Orlando?
Well, our leaders are only going to be as serious as we require them to be. Ultimately, it's up to us to hold our leaders accountable for their failures. It's up to us to hold our leaders accountable for their lack of seriousness. And if we can't do it, we're going to end up with the leaders that we deserve.
Okay, columnist David French, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you for your time and insights.
Thanks for having me.